for BYU?
In this new style that we think we may see, obviously a quarterback and being able to run is something that's significant. I mean, look at our guy. Our guy. There's some things that we'll try to do with him as well. So you see some athleticism, and you're definitely concerned about not only the spread read play where the quarterback pulls it, but any play action play where the quarterback can get on the perimeter. So there's an emphasis of knowing, as we said with the linebacker, of knowing where this guy is because he's very talented, and I know he's had the injury situation, but we're playing everybody like they're 1,000%, and I think that with that in mind, he's definitely one that we've identified as being a guy that we got to know where he's at all times.
No doubting. I think the last practice open to the media, Jake was still nursing that stinger. Curious whether he got back to normal pretty quickly, and also what do you see from his blocking, seeing as that was one of his missions in the offseason to become more of an all-around player?
Yeah, it was unfortunate that the shoulder issue occurred. I mean, obviously when you're trying to get stronger and work on your blocking, and you would have a shoulder issue, I mean that kind of puts a damper on things. But it's been progressively getting better and better. Jake has participated in the last 3-4 practices, with full pads. So his development continues to keep getting stronger. And as I said before, he'll play in the game because he has a skill set that we definitely need. But we've got to require our tight ends to block, and I think that Jake will get better at that. I think Zach and Rob Burns have done nice jobs. When they've got in, their number's been called. But as I said, we'll expect all three of these guys to have an opportunity to play and help us.
Thank you. Mike, Steve talked a lot about toughness and instilling toughness, and a lot of the guys, linemen, running backs from last year, said that maybe you guys were lacking in that area. What kind of things have you done this spring to kind of build that up and to toughen the team up?
I think you start with the mindset, about how you approach things. It starts in the weight room, about just that type of the aggressive, tough attitude that you have to have in order to play physical brand of football. You have to put yourself in positions or in a culture or an environment that requires you to do that. And I think Evan's done a great job with that. And we've mentioned before bringing in the Navy SEALs and a certain mental aspect to being tough, and then practices. If you ask our guys, we haven't practiced as long, but we've probably had more contact, more physical contact, more scrimmages than we've had in the past. And I think that's led to a certain amount of being physically tough and having to play when you're tired and make plays in the fourth quarter or the latter part of practice. And so I think those things, just a few things that speak to the mentality of playing tough and being tough. And I think the fellows responded well to it this particular year.
Like Cody Hoffman, the receiver there, is 6'4", 210, a Blitnikoff candidate. Have you, last year I think maybe Allen Hurns, Quinshawn Davis were some of those big receivers that you faced. Is that a matchup that Trey is going to take on, and how do you go about kind of challenging him? Because he could be a pretty easy option for that quarterback.
Sure, he's another talented player, and obviously, we think Trey is talented as well. But sometimes you just may look up and look at a matchup that you want to create and throw the ball out that way. So again, with coverages and how we assist Trey or whoever, even if it's Hosky or Maurice Kennedy, how we assist him is game plan that John and the defensive coaches have for his talented player. But we're still going to do what we do, and if the quarterback has a lot of time to throw it to him, then that's an issue with guys up front. So it's a collaborative effort, and we'll trust me, we'll make sure that we know where that 6'5" plus guy is at all times.
What do you like, and what have you seen from your pass rush? I know that was something you really wanted to improve in the off season, and has it just kind of made you stop and say, wow, at any point in the preseason?
I think when you look at, obviously a guy that's talented like Eli Harold, he's fast. First quick step off the ball is really, really good. A guy like Brent Urban who's gotten bigger and stronger. Go back to the spring game and what he's done in practices is he's gotten really, really good at pushing the pocket and making a combination move off of that. And there's a guy like David Dean, small, compact, but explosive. So I think it lends itself to their skills, but also the style that John calls that allows for a lot of movement. Guys to try to exploit matchups, whether it's over guard or tackle or whatever it may be. So I think you see more of that, but obviously sometimes you'll just have one-on-one rushes. You just got to beat your guy, and we've seen a lot of that during the course of spring practice and early part of August ball. It has to continue for sure.
Mike, you've got looks like 9 guys listed at the various wide receiver spots, and I know you mentioned earlier in camp that some of these guys are going to have to play special teams. I just wondered, are all 9 of those guys, will they have an opportunity to get on the field on offense? Is that why they're listed, or will some of them be exclusively special teams players?
Some of them will be exclusively special teams players. Again, as I mentioned, the question was brought up about tight ends. Some of them, they're in packages, whether it's 10 personnel or an empty personnel or whatever it may be. But they're listed because they have value in some of the plays and personnel groupings that we have. We call. So, and also typically the first couple games, you kind of see where your team is from a conditioning standpoint as well, and you'd like to play enough guys that maybe could speak to that. That's why you see a lot of guys listed right now. But definitely in the wide receiver position, the special teams value is critical.
Jay James, WINA Radio. Coach, question about David Watford. As a redshirt sophomore and really getting his first opportunity to kind of be the guy, do you look at him to be more of a game manager, or do you feel like he has enough possession of the entire offense that you can, what you see some upperclassmen quarterbacks do, they have more liberty within the offense?
Well, I think, one, David has to make sure he gets our players lined up correctly and calls the plays that Coach Fairchild sends in. And then, 2, the ability that he's gained over the last couple of years, some of that is that innate ability to know when to pull the ball and run, to know when to slide shuffle to avoid a sack. I think David is at that point of his career where he's been around enough to do those things. So we're not going to ask him to do more than what he's capable of doing. Obviously he's a gifted and talented young man, but if he does what's being asked of him to do in distributing the ball, and then using his legs and his arm and his brain, then I think that's going to be critical to our success. And so everyone's excited to see how David's going to play, because it'll be very important, and particularly with this experienced defense, it'll be an early test. We'll see.
Mike, when you're coming off a losing season and you're trying to build momentum for your program, and you have a team like Oregon coming in week 2, does that make this opening game any more important for the program?
I think any opening game or any opportunity to gauge yourself and use a barometer is always important. Obviously, these 2 that are coming in they're some of the best teams. One is in the top 5, top 10. The other one is perennial, been a bowl team. So they're as good as they get. And I think that if you want to push the envelope and try to get yourself better, that you have to prepare from that standpoint. We found out that we were playing them. Everything gets ramped up. Spring practice, how they train during the summer, how we practice, during the August camp, everything gets turned up. And so, having 2 great teams coming in to Charlottesville, Scott Stadium, is a challenge, but I think it's a challenge the players have embraced and are looking forward to meeting.
Doug Dowdy, have you decided where your coaches will be positioned during the game? Who will be on the field? Who will be in the box?
That's on the front page of your notes, but I'll let him answer it. Going back to Jeff's point a moment ago about opening games, there are approximately 3,900 tickets remaining for this first game as well. So the crowd will be in the very high 50,000 range.
Like you said, Coach Lewis would have his pick of the roster for special teams. How many starting players do you anticipate being on special teams?
Well, if you look at, and of course, you'll only know after the game, but if you look at the depth chart, the two deep now, then there's every, outside of an offensive lineman, let me back up, there are some offensive linemen that are involved in our punting game, shield protection, but there's every player in the two deep that has an opportunity to go on the field as a special teams player, and I think, again, it speaks to the commitment of making sure that third of the game, or everyone talks about, the hit and run or the catch and return part of the game is something that we try to create an advantage on, and I think we've addressed that.
Matt Cliff, how do
Games are
you
getting short,
how do you feel about the offensive line and where they are heading into the opener?
I tell you, Jerry, I feel pretty good about the first five because they've been in college games outside of Ross. I feel pretty good about the first five. Obviously, when you look at two true freshmen, as backups, that's a little bit of a concern because birth date and weight room is what you look for guys like that in the trenches. Losing Sean Cascarano, that hurt. And he's still walking around on a crutch right now. So I wish him the best, getting his hip healthy. But you got to have those guys in the trenches, to play well for you. And I think depth may be an issue for us, but I think we're talented in that area. And you look on the other side too. I mean, we talk about the guys up front with Brent Urban, David Dean, explosive, and even a guy like Michael Moore, who's trying to find roles for him, could also move to the inside, to provide depth. Dante Wilkins will play. There's another true freshman that will play, this year. So it'll be interesting to see, Jerry, firsthand, how these guys respond when they're out on the field by themselves, no coaching, playing against, other college offensive and defensive linemen.
Coach, we know special teams is something you want to continue to see progress, improvement from last year. Will we see is the emphasis on better execution, or will we see bigger differences in the scheme itself when it comes to special teams this year?
Jay, I think you look at the overall philosophy of it, hopefully what you see is guys getting out of the huddle quickly, guys getting lined up quickly. You'll see different techniques used that have not been used in the past. We work hard on our return game, and trying to get guys, in the open field, get blocks on them to allow guys like Khalid Shepard or Smoke or whoever it may be, to return. And I think that's important. Dominic Terrell in the punt game. So, hopefully we'll improve our return game for sure. I think the style of coverage, the run and hit squads, as we talk about, there's an aggressive side to that Larry has brought to us. So, again, that's something to be talked about as we start playing.
Is there somebody who, given the opportunity to play special teams, kind of surprised you with how much they took to it, like maybe what kind of hitman they are? Or is there somebody that really sticks out?
There's two individuals that stand out. One is Miles Gooch. Miles first got here, he was a quarterback, and then made the switch to wide receiver. And probably he didn't know whether he wanted to be here or not. But I just give the kid all the credit in the world that he just put his head down to the grind. He listened to the coaching, learned the techniques, and I tell you what, he's become a four-phase special teams guy that has really done a really nice job. The other guy is one of those wide receivers that Mark was talking about, is Kyle Dawkins. Kyle has put himself into being a four-phase special teams guy as well. Also, he's put himself into being in the two deep because of his effort. So, competition, you got to raise your level of competition. If you don't raise it, then somebody's going to pass you up. And Kyle has shown that he's hungry when it comes to special teams. That gets him on the field. And because he brought that type of attitude, he brought it to the receiving rank, which has got him in the two deep as we speak. So I would say those two guys are names that kind of jump